Amen. Amen. God is truly, truly awesome and worthy to be praised. This is our first day back. We took a few days off the campaign trail to spend some quality time with family and visit my mom. And we had a good time of relaxation. But we're back today doing our first podcast. There's so much going on in the world and in politics. And amen. Reverend Mike is just trying to share his platform and his agenda. I will try to be brief today and make this podcast a little shorter. But in my spiritual mind, for the last week, when we think about the SAVE Act and we think about the changes that are trying to be made to the SNAP program, and we think about the changes that are trying to be made to juvenile reform, all of this brought on by the Republican Party. We want to make sure that there's a clear understanding to the negative impact of these initiatives and make sure that the voting electorate is well informed. In my spirit, all week, I've been dealing with this verse as we paraphrase and thought is that the Lord has laid it out to me. Keep asking, keep searching, keep knocking. And the question could be, when will my people truly be free from voter oppression? When will we truly be free from voter oppression, where access to the poll will be a privilege and an American right with easy access without the type of overreached oversight that we're seeing coming in America today? For everyone that acts, for everyone that searches, for everyone that knocks, the door will be open. I asked, and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open. That comes from Matthew's chapter 7, verse 11. So again, I go back to keep asking, keep searching, keep knocking. When will my people truly be free from voter oppression? My commentary today, the SAVE Act, understanding its impact on voting rights in Mississippi County. Voting is the cornerstone for democracy. Every eligible citizen deserves a fair chance to participate in elections without unnecessary obstacles. Yet the SAVE Act threatens to create new barriers that could make voting harder for many residents of Mississippi County, Arkansas. I will share what the Voting Act means for voters, why it matters, and what you can do to protect your right to vote. Very important. What is the SAVE Act? The SAVE Act proposes changes to voter registration requirements. It will require voters to present specific forms of identification, such as birth certificates or passports. While the goal is often described as preventing voter fraud, the practical effect is to add hurdles for many people who want to vote. We just went through a time in this country where we had enhanced driver's license, the STAR, which should be the standard for establishing identification and residency. So why, after going through all of this to change to enhance driver's license, the Voter Act suggests that a driver's license would not be enough to certify and qualify you as a registered voter. Now understand, not everyone has a passport. Passports are not free. The cost can range from $100 to as much as $200, depending on if you get it expedited and what it requires. Also, not everyone has access to their original birth certificate. What happens if you're married and Rather than using your maiden name, you take on your husband's name. And your birth certificate has your maiden name on it. Your driver's license has your name under your husband. Will you be considered unqualified to vote? Can you imagine the problems this is going to cause? It's really equivalent to the poll tax, the time of Jim Crow when you had to pay a poll tax to vote. Or even going back to a darker time where you had to count how many beans were in a jar to be able to vote. Or maybe even how many bubbles are in a bar of soap. I mean, anything they could think of to make the process difficult. Even now in a time where they can't guarantee us that there will not be ice at the polling places. All of these things are meant to discourage us and put fear and stop the average American from exercising their right to vote. So just because it says the SAFE Act does not mean it's safe for all citizens. It's really just creating another barrier to dilute the vote. In Mississippi County, where many residents may not have passports or birth certificates readily available, this law could disappropriately affect low-income families, seniors, and young voters. These groups often face challenges in obtaining official documents due to the cost, time, or access to government offices. Also, how the SAVE Act creates barriers. The SAVE Act's requirement for certification and passports mean increased costs. Obtaining a passport or birth certificate can cost money that some families cannot spare. Time-consuming processes. Applying for these documents involves paperwork, waiting on periods, and sometimes travel to government offices. Risk of disenfranchisement. Voters without required IDs may be turned away or discouraged from registering. These barriers do not affect all voters equally. Those who already face challenges in accessing government services will find it harder to meet these new demands. Just think about it. How many of our working class, our poor, our seniors, our young people have passports? That means it will require them to spend money in funds they may not have available. How is that making it safer and easier for you to vote? When you already have a registered enhanced driver's license with your photo on it, your address on it, establishing you as a registered voter. Again, these barriers do not face all voters equally. That's the reason the Republicans are pushing the SAFE Act. They're calling it safe. But the only safety in this act is guaranteeing them safety that less working class, poor people, underserved, disadvantaged people will vote, ensuring them a favorable outcome in elections. That's what they mean by safe. I challenge you to ask your state representative, whether he's Democrat or Republican, what is his positions on the SAFE Act? And what is his concern about increased costs and increased barriers and voter suppression for the working class? It's important to understand the difference between Democrat and Republican approaches in voting rights in Mississippi County and across this country. The Democratic agenda focuses on expanding access to the polls, reducing barriers, and protecting every citizen's right to vote. The Republican agenda, as seen in the SAFE Act, tends to emphasize stricter ID requirements and regulations that can limit voter participation. So how is that better for you? Ask your state representative for District 34. What is his position on the SAFE Act? How does he feel this will affect this rural, poor working community creating more barriers and challenges and extra costs just to exercise your American right to vote. Mike Middlebrook, I'm committed to fighting for policies that make voting easier, not harder. Voting should be a right, not a privilege reserved for those who have current documents. That's why we're asking you to look at these real life examples of impact. Consider a senior citizen living in a rural part of Mississippi County. They may have lost their birth certificates or never had a passport. Under the SAFE Act, they would need to obtain these documents to register to vote. This process could require travel to a distant government office, paying fees, or waiting weeks for processing. For many, this is a significant burden. Similar, young voters who recently turned 18 may not have passports or birth certificates on hand. The SAVE Act could discourage them from registering, reducing youth participation in elections, which is exactly what they want. What you can do, your voice matters. Here are steps you can take to protect voting rights in Mississippi County. Ask your Republican representation about their position on the SAFE Act. It is important to hold elected officials accountable. Spread awareness among friends, family, and neighbors about how the SAFE Act could really be voter suppression and limit the ability for the average citizen to vote. Support efforts that promote easier access to voting, such as early voting, mail-in ballots, and voter education programs. Stay informed about local and state election laws and participate in community discussions. That's one of the reasons we're doing these weekly posts and commentary, to educate our constituents. Don't get caught up in the cloud of disinformation and misinformation and fancy words that sound safe and protecting you, where they're really trying to isolate, dilute your voice and your power to vote. Protecting voting rights is protecting the democracy. Voting is a fundamental right that should be accessible to all eligible citizens. The SAVE Act threatens to make voting more difficult for many in Mississippi County by imposing unnecessary ID requirements. That challenges, create risks, including diluting access for the most vulnerable population to participate in the democratic process. As a proud Democrat and your next state representative, I will continue to fight for policies that remove barriers and ensure every voice is heard at the poll. Your right to vote is powerful. Use it, protect it, and demand that your representation and your representatives do the same. Is your current Republican state representative fighting to make voting easier for you, more accessible to you? Or is he pushing and supporting initiatives, laws that restricts and makes voting harder for you? That's the question we should all be asking. Mike Middlebrook will always fight to create easier access for all American citizens to exercise their right to vote. Together, we can build stronger, more inclusive democracy in Mississippi County, in the great state of Arkansas, and across the United States of America. Have a blessed day.